September 30th, 2021. The Old Bailey held its breath as Wayne Couzens stood before Lord Justice Fulford, the former Metropolitan Police officer, a man trusted with a badge, a firearm, and the authority of the state, waited to hear how the justice system would respond to a crime that had shaken an entire nation. What the judge imposed that day was not a dramatic ending. It was the beginning of something far longer, far quieter, and for many, far more disturbing than death itself. When the gavel came down, Wayne Couzens did not simply receive a sentence. He disappeared into a system built to punish through time rather than finality. He was handed a whole life order, the harshest penalty available in the British justice system. No parole, no review, no possibility of release. The court made one thing unmistakably clear. Wayne Couzens would die in prison. This felt insufficient. Many believe execution would have been true justice, that allowing him to live is an act of mercy, that life behind bars is an easier escape than death. But that belief rests on a misunderstanding of what this sentence actually means. Wayne Couzens is held at HMP Frankland, a Category A maximum security prison in County Durham. This is not an ordinary facility. It houses terrorists, serial killers, and men the state considers too dangerous to ever walk free again. And somewhere inside those walls sits a former police officer who used his uniform, his warrant card, and his handcuffs to abduct, assault, and murder a woman. Inside prison, there is an unspoken hierarchy. Sex offenders occupy the lowest tier. Former police officers fall beneath even them. A man who abused his authority to destroy a life occupies a position few inmates ever reach. He is not simply despised. He is hunted. By the end of this video, you will understand why Wayne Couzens' daily existence behind bars may be a punishment more severe than execution. Tell me in the comments whether you agree. On the evening of March 3, 2021, Sarah Everard stepped out of a friend's home in Clapham, South London. She was 33 years old, a marketing executive, a daughter, a partner, a woman doing nothing extraordinary. It was around 9 in the evening. She had spent time with a friend and was now walking home through familiar streets. She spoke on the phone with her boyfriend as she walked, following the habits many people adopt to feel safer at night. She stayed on well-lit roads. She did not take shortcuts. She did everything she was supposed to do. She never arrived home. That same night, Wayne Couzens was not on duty. He was not responding to a call. He was not assigned to patrol. He was not acting under any official instruction. But he carried his warrant card. He had access to police-issue handcuffs. And he understood the authority those items represented. Britain was under strict COVID lockdown rules at the time. Citizens could be stopped, questioned, and even detained if officers believed regulations were being violated. Couzens knew this. He planned around it. He waited for it as Sarah walked through Clapham. Couzens approached her and identified himself as a police officer. He told her she was in breach of lockdown restrictions. He spoke with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. He did not raise his voice. He did not rush. He placed handcuffs on her wrists. Witnesses saw the interaction. They saw a woman being detained by a man who appeared to be a police officer. Nothing about the scene suggested danger. Nothing appeared illegal. No one intervened. No one called for help. The uniform did its job. That was the deception. That was the mechanism. Once Sarah was restrained, Couzens led her to a rental car he had secured in advance. This was not a spontaneous act. The vehicle had been hired specifically for this purpose. He placed her inside and drove away from London. The journey lasted nearly 80 miles, from the capital into rural Kent. Surveillance cameras would later confirm the route. What happened during that drive remains known only in fragments, but the destination was deliberate. Couzens had chosen isolation. He had chosen controlled in a remote area. Away from witnesses, he assaulted her. He raped her. He then killed her using his police issue belt. The same equipment issued to protect the public became the instrument of her death. Afterward, he took steps to conceal what he had done. He burned her remains using a refrigerator he had obtained beforehand. He disposed of what was left in a pond on land he had access to near Ashford, Kent. These actions were not chaotic. They were methodical. Every stage reflected preparation. This was not a crime of impulse. It was not a moment of loss of control. The rental car, the restraints, the chosen location, the disposal method, all of it pointed to premeditation. Sarah Everard complied because she believed she was dealing with a legitimate police officer. She trusted the uniform. She trusted the authority it represented. That trust cost her life. When Sarah failed to return home, concern quickly turned into alarm. On March 4th, she was reported missing. She was not answering her phone. She had vanished without explanation. Within hours, police launched one of the largest missing person investigations London had seen in years. Officers canvassed neighborhoods. Appeals were issued to the public. Her photograph appeared across television broadcasts, newspapers, and social media. Thousands shared her image, hoping someone had seen something, anything. What ultimately broke the case was not memory or witness testimony. It was technology. London is among the most surveilled cities in the world. Investigators reviewed hours of CCTV footage from Clapham and surrounding areas. They identified a white Vauxhall Astra in the vicinity at the time Sarah disappeared. The vehicle appeared repeatedly across different cameras, moving steadily away from London. Automatic number plate recognition systems tracked the car's movements across Britain's road network. The data revealed a clear path from South London into Kent, the same 80-mile journey Sarah had been forced to take. The rental records led investigators to the man who had hired the vehicle, Wayne Couzens. On March 9th, less than a week after Sarah vanished, police arrested him at his home in Deal, Kent, on suspicion of kidnapping. The following day, officers searching woodland near Ashford discovered human remains. They had been burned. They had been discarded near a pond. On March 12th, dental records confirmed what investigators already believed. The remains belonged to Sarah Everard. 6 days. That was all it took. The digital trail was complete. Cameras had followed him. Databases had mapped his movements. Technology had succeeded where appearances had failed. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Wayne Couzens did not immediately accept responsibility. He did not confess. Instead, he attempted to rewrite the narrative. He claimed he was the victim. He told investigators that an organized gang had threatened his family. He said he had been forced to abduct women under duress. He insisted he had no choice. The story collapsed under scrutiny. No gang existed. No threats were found. No communications supported his claims. The fabrication revealed more than silence ever could. CCTV footage placed him at the scene. Vehicle data tracked his journey. DNA connected him to the crime. His police equipment linked him directly to Sarah's restraint and death. Every path led back to him. The lie did not create doubt. It exposed intent. This was not coercion. This was planning. And the consequences were now unavoidable. As the investigation closed in, the weight of evidence left no room for ambiguity. Wayne Couzens was no longer shielded by the authority he once carried. The same systems that had allowed him to move unnoticed now documented every step he took. Surveillance footage placed him on the streets of Clapham. Vehicle tracking traced his route into Kent. Forensic analysis tied his DNA to the crime. The tools he used were issued by the state itself. There was nowhere left to hide. Yet even then, Couzens attempted to distance himself from responsibility. During questioning, he presented a narrative designed to fracture the truth. He claimed he had been coerced by a criminal network. He described shadowy figures, foreign accents, threats against his family. According to his account, he was not the architect of the crime but a pawn trapped by fear. It was a story crafted to introduce doubt, to suggest inevitability rather than choice. Investigators dismantled the claim piece by piece. They searched phone records, financial transactions, communication logs, travel histories. They looked for evidence of surveillance, intimidation, or contact with any criminal organization. Nothing surfaced. No messages. No payments. No witnesses. No corroboration of any kind. The gang existed only in his imagination. The lie was not a desperate attempt at survival. It was a calculated effort to evade accountability. As the false narrative collapsed, the reality of the crime became undeniable. This was not an act carried out under pressure. It was a crime executed with preparation and intent. Couzens had exploited a moment in history when public trust and emergency powers intersected. COVID restrictions gave him cover. His uniform gave him authority. Together, they created the perfect disguise. On July 9, 2021, Wayne Couzens entered guilty pleas to kidnapping, rape, and murder. There was no trial. There was no prolonged contest over facts. The admissions confirmed what the evidence had already established. The man entrusted with enforcing the law had used it as a weapon. The courtroom absorbed the gravity of that reality in silence. The guilty plea did not bring closure. It shifted the focus. The question was no longer what happened. It was how the justice system would respond. On September 30th, 2021, Couzens returned to the Old Bailey for sentencing. The courtroom was filled with observers, journalists, and representatives of a public still reeling from the betrayal. Lord Justice Fulford delivered a judgment that would define the rest of Couzens' life. The sentence was a whole life order. In the United Kingdom, this is the most severe punishment available. It does not carry a minimum term. It does not allow for parole. It does not include periodic review. It is imprisonment until death. The judge made it explicit. Wayne Couzens would never be released. At the time, only a small number of individuals in British legal history had received such a sentence. Whole life orders are reserved for the most extreme cases. Serial killers who murdered repeatedly. Terrorists responsible for mass casualties. Offenders whose crimes demonstrated exceptional depravity. Couzens had killed one person, but the court determined that the nature of his crime elevated it beyond numerical comparison. Lord Justice Fulford emphasized the abuse of power at the heart of the case. Couzens was not merely a murderer. He was a police officer who had sworn to protect the public. He carried a warrant card and handcuffs issued by the state. He used that authority to deceive a woman into submission. He exploited the trust that allows policing to function. In doing so, he did not only take a life. He damaged the relationship between law enforcement and the public it serves. The judgment made clear that this betrayal justified the maximum penalty. The crime was not isolated to one victim. Its impact rippled outward. Women across the country questioned their safety. Citizens questioned the reliability of authority. The uniform, once a symbol of protection, became a source of fear. The court recognized that in countries with capital punishment, the outcome might have been different. Execution would have brought finality. A single moment marking the end of the sentence. Britain does not offer that conclusion. Instead, it imposes time. Endless, unchanging time. A whole life order ensures that punishment is not delivered in an instant but stretched across decades. Wayne Couzens was transferred to HMP Frankland, a Category A maximum security prison in County Durham. This facility houses individuals the state considers too dangerous to ever release. Terrorists, serial killers, men whose crimes place them beyond rehabilitation. It is a controlled environment designed to contain risk rather than reform. Inside prison, hierarchy governs survival. There is an unspoken order understood by every inmate. At the bottom are sex offenders. Crimes against women and children carry a particular stigma. Violence against them is common and often deliberate. Below even them are former police officers. Men who once enforced the law are despised by those they once controlled. Couzens occupies a position lower still. A police officer who used his authority to commit sexual violence and murder represents the ultimate betrayal. He is not simply disliked. He is a symbol that makes him a target. For this reason, he cannot exist within the general population. He is held in segregation on a vulnerable prisoner unit. His movements are restricted. His interactions are limited. He does not share communal spaces. Every aspect of his daily routine is governed by protocols designed to keep him alive. Guards monitor his location. Transfers are carefully planned. The system expends resources not to comfort him, but to prevent others from killing him. This is not protection as privilege. It is containment. His world is reduced to concrete walls, controlled lighting, scheduled meals, and regulated movement. Days blur into one another. There is no progression, no milestones, no countdown to freedom. Prisoners serving fixed terms work toward release. They attend programs. They earn privileges. They imagine a future beyond the walls. Couzens has none of this. A whole life order removes the concept of reintegration entirely. There is no parole board to persuade, no sentence to shorten, no behavior that can change the outcome. He exists in a permanent state of waiting, alive but static, breathing but going nowhere. The system can shield him from immediate violence, cannot shield him from time. Years will pass, decades will follow. The routine will remain unchanged. He will wake each morning knowing that nothing ahead offers variation or hope. The punishment is not pain inflicted once. It is endurance without escape. For most prisoners, time is something to be measured. Days are crossed off calendars. Years are counted down. Even long sentences carry an implied destination. Parole hearing, a release date, a moment when the door opens and life resumes in some altered form. Wayne Couzens does not have that framework. A whole life order removes the future entirely. There is nothing to work toward, nothing to earn, nothing to imagine beyond the walls that surround him. He entered HMP Frankland knowing that the sentence imposed on him would never change. The door closed behind him with finality. There will be no reassessment of character, no demonstration of rehabilitation, no acknowledgement of good behavior that leads anywhere. The system is not designed to ask whether he has changed. It is designed to ensure he never leaves. Couzens is currently in his early 50s. Even accounting for the physical and psychological toll of incarceration, actuarial estimates suggest he could live another 25 to 30 years, perhaps longer. British prisons provide medical care. Chronic conditions are treated. Serious illness is managed. Death is not accelerated. Survival is maintained. That is not mercy. It is policy. Consider what that means in practical terms. 3 decades of the same environment, the same cell, the same routine, the same restricted movement, the same meals served on the same schedule, the same ceiling overhead every night. Every morning begins with the knowledge that nothing ahead offers novelty or relief. The days are not endured in pursuit of something better. They are endured because there is no alternative. Psychological research into long-term incarceration reveals a consistent pattern. When there is no endpoint, time begins to lose structure. Identity erodes. Without roles, goals, or future narratives, individuals report a sense of fading. They exist, but they are no longer becoming anything. Prisoners serving whole life orders often describe themselves as waiting. Not waiting for release, waiting for cessation. Every day Couzens wakes up to the same reality. The crime he committed cannot be undone. The victim cannot be restored. The sentence cannot be shortened. There is no redemption arc available. No second act. No opportunity to demonstrate transformation. The justice system is not interested in who he might become. It is interested only in ensuring he remains contained. In this sense, a whole life order differs fundamentally from execution. Capital punishment ends consciousness in a single moment. The sentence is delivered and completed. Awareness ceases. A whole life order extends awareness across decades. It forces a person to experience every hour of every day knowing that this is all there will ever be. The punishment is not intensity. It is duration. Some argue this is mercy. He is allowed to live. Others argue it is something harsher. Life reduced to routine. Existence stripped of purpose. Survival without hope. The question remains unresolved because the sentence does not invite resolution. It simply continues. In 2022, Wayne Couzens made his final attempt to alter his fate. He filed an appeal against his sentence. He did not dispute his guilt. He did not challenge the evidence. He accepted responsibility for kidnapping, rape, and murder. His argument focused solely on proportionality. He claimed that whole life orders should be reserved for offenders who killed repeatedly or committed mass atrocities. He He had killed one person. He argued that the maximum penalty was excessive. The Court of Appeal considered the submission. In July of 2022, the judges delivered their decision. The appeal was rejected. The court ruled that the nature of the crime fully justified the sentence imposed. This was not an ordinary murder. It was a profound breach of public trust. Couzens had been a police officer. He had used the authority of the state to deceive his victim. He had transformed protection into predation. The judges concluded that this betrayal elevated the offense into the most serious category of criminal conduct. The whole life order was not only appropriate, it was necessary. With that ruling, all legal avenues closed. There would be no further hearings, no reconsideration, no possibility of eventual release. The sentence was final. Wayne Couzens will die in prison, not because the state will take his life, but because the state has determined he will never leave custody. The law offered him one opportunity to argue for a different outcome. The answer was no. There will not be another chance. The impact of his crime extended far beyond the prison walls. In March of 2021, thousands gathered at Clapham Common to mourn Sarah Everard. Women held candles. They shared stories of fear, harassment, and vulnerability. The vigil became a moment of collective reckoning. When police moved to disperse the crowd under COVID regulations, images of officers restraining grieving women spread globally. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. Public anger intensified. Questions were asked about institutional culture, about vetting procedures, about warning signs that had been missed. Commissioner Cressida Dick faced mounting pressure. In February of 2022, she resigned. The resignation did not end the scrutiny. In March of 2023, the Casey Review published its findings. It concluded that the Metropolitan Police was institutionally racist, misogynistic, and homophobic. The Couzens case was cited as evidence of systemic failure, not an isolated anomaly. Reforms followed. Officers were dismissed. Vetting standards were revised. Oversight mechanisms were strengthened. Trust, once broken, proved difficult to restore. Through it all, the Everard family remained present. Sarah's mother spoke at sentencing. She described the image of her daughter's fear. She described the permanence of loss. The family transformed grief into advocacy, demanding accountability and change. The world moved on, as it always does. Policies were rewritten. Debates continued. Wayne Couzens remained where he was, alone in a cell at HMP Frankland, aging, isolated, remembered not as a man, but as a symbol of betrayal. There is no forgiveness waiting for him, no rehabilitation pathway, no closing chapter. He will watch the years pass from behind concrete walls while the world remembers what he did. Some call that mercy, others call it justice. The only certainty is this: Wayne Couzens will never be free again. He will not face an execution chamber. He will wake up in the same cell, surrounded by men who know exactly who he is, until age and illness finally claim him. Some see that as mercy. Others see it as a punishment stretched across decades. One thing is beyond dispute: Wayne Couzens will never walk free again. Each morning he opens his eyes, the crime follows him. The uniform he abused defines him, and the outside world remembers while he waits for an ending that will never arrive. So here is the question that remains: is permanent imprisonment the harsher sentence? Tell me in the comments whether life behind bars is worse than death. This is Court of Secrets.